Figure 4 Radio.
Hello everyone, welcome to Figure 4 Radio. My name is the Mastermind Olie Spring. I'm joined as always by Luke-O-Mac.
Hello.
And today we are talking about good wrestling, and not good in general. I'm talking about the good wrestling. The new promotion popped up in Milton Keynes, and we're joined by Chris East.
Hello guys. Hello.
Would you say are you the owner, the promoter? Like what would your job title be in good? The main man?
Well, yeah, I would say the main man.
Would your brother agree?
My brother Adam, who's also, he let's say 50% of the whole thing.
You're half of the whole man.
Yes, yeah, half. Between the two of us, we make up one whole man. Yeah.
Cool. So for those listening who don't know about Good or haven't seen, the Facebook page or been to the shows, what is Good Wrestling all about?
So Good Wrestling is a very small wrestling promotion based out of the Crawford Arms rock venue in Wolverton, Milton Keynes.
One of the best?
Yeah, one of the best rock venues in the country. Yeah, a lot of good stuff going down there. We're really
pun intended.
Well, yeah, but yeah, a lot of exciting bands come through there over the years and still coming through there now. We're really happy to be on board with them.
How did that actually come about? So, I mean, we're here in Northampton, but Milton Keynes, Crawford Arms is a good half hour, 40-minute drive away. How did you guys hook up with the Crawford?
Yeah, so I mean, Wolverton is actually it's easier to get there by the train.
True. Yeah.
From here, it's about 7 minutes on the train.
Oh, we should have taken the train. Probably should have done.
Yeah. I don't understand how that works. It's some kind of backwards interdimensional logic, which means it takes longer to get there by car than by train.
It's the only place in the world.
Yeah. But we, myself and Adam, my brother, both come from like live music background, putting on gigs, playing in bands, and Adam is actually very close with the guys who run the Crawford.
Cool.
And they were, when the opportunity came up to have some wrestling in their venue, they jumped at it.
Cool. So you used to run gigs as well. You've kind of promoted other shows. Or?
Yeah. So still dip my toe in it now and then. Adam the same. But yeah, been promoting live music since 2002.
Wow.
Which is belying my age a little bit there. But also I come from like a performing arts background as well, so I've done like a lot of comedy variety show promotion as well. So it kind of lends itself well to sort of to these sort of events, and a passion for wrestling has kind of led us down this path.
Going to ask you about that. It's like kind of going back to the start almost. How did you kind of discover wrestling? Like, what was your? So we've done a podcast on how we got started in it, and like everyone's got their unique story of how they went to it. How did you discover it?
If I cast my mind back, I think I remember visiting an auntie and my cousins in London, and visiting their little council house, and the TV being on, and seeing this massive man dressed in grey and purple walking along the top rope, and being incredibly intrigued and excited about what the hell I was seeing. That man grew up to be the Undertaker.
Yeah, had an alright run.
And just from a very early age, just massively intrigued by it. Videotapes of, I think it was one of the early WrestleManias. It was the Warrior Hogan WrestleMania on repeat.
WrestleMania 6. Potentially my favourite Warrior match and my favourite Hogan match, actually.
Yeah, over and over and over. Alternated between screenings of Aliens and the Goonies, and that was my childhood. I remember being banned from wrestling for a couple of years.
Wow.
When I was younger.
How come? Was it by your parents or?
Yeah, by my mum. Having
what did you do?
Performed wrestling moves on smaller children. which I think we all do.
We have all been there, yeah.
Yeah.
I broke a handful of items of furniture by power slamming my brother through them as a kid.
My brother broke my sister's chin.
Yeah.
Oh,
We've all
incredible.
been
Yeah, I think myself and Adam probably ruined a fair amount of furniture in the past as well. But yeah, I remember coming home and my mum being furious and then taking a Colosseum compilation video and cutting it to bits with scissors.
Oh, that's harsh.
Right in front
That's
of me.
devastating.
Yeah, and it took years to get back into it. And then just Friday nights telling my parents, can you just get out of the room so that we can watch we can watch Raw when it's on. If you could go to bed early, we can watch that.
Wow.
And it worked most time, but just always sort of held on to that, and now here we are.
Yeah, there you go. So in Figure 4, we've always talked about, wouldn't it be cool to run our own shows and stuff. We've spoken to some friends over in Wales, Exposure Entertainment. They used to fly people in and just kind of like tour them around the country and like loan them out, as it were. They decided to put on their show after a while. So we've kind of been around enough people brainstorming ideas of how to put on a show, or how they'd want to put on a show, and who they'd book. How do you actually go from being a wrestling fan to then promoting Good One at Crawford Arms? What was that process like?
I mean, it was a long process. I think the idea had been knocking around for quite some time. I mean, we're in Northampton now, and we originally wanted to run some shows here in Northampton, and I know Adam had got quite far along with arranging some stuff at one point before I got on board, and you know, it's kind of difficult sort of dealing with different types of venues and trying to find the right place, and it was probably almost 2 to 3 years before we actually got our act together and said, well, we can actually do this and we can actually work with the Crawford. I think it really was the Crawford kind of getting on board that pushed us into actually doing it. But yeah, it's just been sort of something knocking around at the back of our heads, knowing that we can put on events. Well, maybe we could put this on. Kind
of, so I suppose, because I've booked music festivals back in Milton Keynes a few years ago, so I know how hard it is to kind of get people like be in control or be in charge of trying to get a group of people in the same place at the same time, on time, ready to go, as it were. So I think I chatted to you a bit on the night on the first show, and I could tell it was a bit of a stressful night. What was it like after the final match, and it was all kind of the dust had settled, everything is finished for the night?
Well, we've done 3 shows now, and every time the 48 hours before the show is incredibly stressful. And as soon as the first bell rings, I can kind of start to relax. I can kind of enjoy it because it's something that's actually happening. And then when it's over, it's I have to, get everybody gone. You get rid of everyone, and then I can have a beer and then sit down and reflect. But yeah, it's a great, I think it's really satisfying. It's really satisfying to actually, be involved in, I guess, creating an event.
So obviously you've got to obviously choose the people you book. I've noticed there's a very big difference between your shows and the other typical shows that you'll get around our home counties area with who's booked on them. So what was your process of choosing who you wanted and kind of picking people out of who you wanted? Because I'm guessing it's almost like a dream roster for you in a way.
There's certain elements to it that are definitely a fantasy. And we have chosen loads of our favourite wrestlers from around the country.
Who would be your favourites, as they were like? Who are the people that you can't
how can I pick between my children?
I'm a dad, I can do that.
I think I think so. The last show, the Power of Three, our headline match was Pete Dunne against Pastor William Eva.
Yep.
And
was that just after he'd won the Progress title?
It was. Pastor was Progress champion. Pete Dunne had just, we announced this just as he was being announced for Pro Wrestling Guerrillas bowler tournament.
I think he was probably one of the only names on there I was surprised by, but not in a good way though, because obviously he deserves it. But like, there's other names floating around globally that you'd have kind of. He was a bit of a dark horse, I think. Yeah,
definitely a dark horse. But I don't think there's many people that deserve it more than him.
Of course,
in the UK right now. He really is one of the best wrestlers in the country. Just having him and Pastor on that last show was kind of like, we could kind of say, right place, right time. But we were putting on one of the sort of hottest matches in the country, UK wise at that very time. So that was exciting, but we've got so many great people on the card. Like,
I'm just curious as to the ones that you were most, because like, I'm sure obviously you've got like, you can't be that excited about everybody. Obviously you're happy about it, but like, I'm just curious as to who you're
excited about everybody.
Yeah, I'm just curious as to,
I will never let on otherwise.
I know in the past when I've booked music festivals, there was definitely bands that I was thinking like, I can't believe we've just put these guys on. Sort
definitely,
of thing. Because I think the first night was headlined by Doug Williams and Joseph Connors. Now Joseph Connors, I've seen him quite a few times over various places. Doug Williams, I think I've only ever seen him wrestle. I saw him wrestle at an ICW show in London.
Okay.
But he's a guy that I've got a lot of respect for everything he's done. So that must have been, I think, surreal in a way.
Yeah, having Doug on that first show, kind of, it just helped us sort of set out what we wanted to be as a promotion. We did and we still do want to show off a lot of like the best wrestling in Britain, the best and most entertaining wrestling in Britain, and having Doug there kind of signals that intent.
Kind of is there kind of almost like an exclamation mark on the end of the sentence, like we've got this, and then at the end of the night we've got one of the biggest legends of British wrestling that's around at the moment.
Certainly. That's Doug's a fella that's been around for decades, and really, I mean, it says it on his t-shirts. He is like an ambassador of British wrestling in 2016.
Without a doubt.
So that was definitely exciting, and having him up against Joseph Connors, who again is one of like the strongest, most consistent British wrestlers in the country, and has held titles up and down the country right now, and it made sense as the headline match for our first show.
So what was the headline for the second show? Because I missed the second show. I mean, I didn't want to touch on it in a way, but I'm also curious because the second show was scheduled to run on one night, and then like it got rearranged. Is there much you can say about that, or is that kind of under the rug right now?
Sure, I mean, I will talk about it. I will talk about it
because I was pissed off, if I'm being honest, because there was 2 shows over 2 days I was going to go to, and they were both the plugs were pulled the last minute on each show, and me as a wrestling fan looking forward to going to some good shows, it pissed me off, to be honest. I won't lie. So I'm kind of curious as to was it a politics thing, do you think? Or?
I completely understand being upset by it. I mean, we were,
obviously anything I felt is amplified for you.
Our second show and having to reschedule like that. It was a licensing issue, but it was also somebody sticking their fingers in and getting involved where they really weren't wanted. We were under the impression that certain licensing was covered, and it turns out there wasn't.
And I think at the same time, it was someone out there was being a bit of
somebody with a vendetta or some kind of agenda,
which I was kind of surprised by, because you guys, you're kind of new to the game, as it were. I can't imagine you'd have upset anybody really. So
no, I mean we're very we're very positive about other British wrestling. I mean, I think I'm on course to go to upwards of 50 shows this year.
Nice.
I try and get out there as much as I can.
Where do you go? I think Progress. I've seen you guys. I've seen you've been to.
I am a season ticket holder at
Nice.
Progress.
It's like the golden ticket
for my sins.
Willy Wonka.
And I regularly go to. Weirdly, a company called 7 Pro in based out of Telford.
Interesting. That's a weird place to have a wrestling company as well.
Yeah,
I haven't heard of them. If I'm being honest.
Like the West Midlands area. They are putting on like probably like some of the cream of British wrestling. That sort of Midlands, Wales sort of contingent. The Ryan Smile had been their champion for quite some time, and
he's actually a guy that I really want to get on a podcast at some point. But I get the feeling I won't get many words in edgeways.
He's a colourful character. So 7 Pro like somehow have become like a regular thing, even though it is a good drive from here. And where else do we go? We get over to Southside in St Neots quite regularly.
That's one that we've been to a few times. In fact, we've interviewed a few people from Southside in the past. They're doing good stuff. They're slightly different promotion to ourselves. A lot of imports. In what? I'm going to say is it the imports that you think?
Yeah, they use a lot of imports, but they also do use like the best wrestlers around. So get over to there, go to the bigger Rev Pro shows.
Bit of a connoisseur of the Brit scene.
Missing somebody out.
I'm sure no one will be offended. But basically, by the sounds of it, you kind of you know your shit basically.
Yeah. Well, yeah. I mean,
that's what I'm getting at. Is that you go to a lot of the good shows.
I want to sound cool and not like a wrestling nerd. But yeah, I go to a lot of shows. I'd be remiss if I didn't mention like Attack Wrestling and Fight Club Pro.
Is it Attack that do the I don't want to say tribute shows, but they're kind of like the video game related shows and stuff like that?
We got over to Cardiff for their press start.
That's the one that I would have killed to a bit. I think I learned about that a year after it happened.
Yeah, well they do one every year, so just keep an eye out. We went to one back earlier this year. That I believe was headlined by Super Mario, Princess Peach, and
this is why I want to go to it.
Against one of Team Rocket, Wario, and I can't remember who the.
See, now that's a WrestleMania main event match right there, if you ask me.
That's like someone has just gone onto SmackDown and created the characters and gone, oh, here you go, off you play.
Funnily you say that. One of the matches earlier in the night, there was a 4-way, which I think was it was Turok, Dalsim, Blanca, and a creator wrestler.
Wow.
Which was just a man in a blue body stocking doing all of the generic moves.
I would love to see him versus Vacant.
Yes. Yeah.
Vacant versus creator wrestler would be. Yeah.
It was amazing. So yeah, we're kind of inspired by loads of different groups around the country. But yeah, I guess we are different to a lot of the groups locally, and I don't know whether that would have rubbed anyone up the wrong way. I don't know.
I don't think
I don't care. We don't know who was responsible for postponing that show, and I'm not interested in pointing fingers at this point.
But the main thing is it didn't, like, as I say, because I thought as your second show, I thought shit, like, so we've got the first show was such a good fun night. You could clearly see the potential for what you could go on to do. I just kept everything crossed that it wouldn't kind of stop it all completely, and luckily it didn't.
And again, that's to the credit of the Crawford. Really, the venue, they, as soon as we said, okay, well, right, take a step back. They were the ones who had been contacted to say that we couldn't do the event. And as soon as that decision was made, they were like, we've got a date a month later, do it then.
So they were on board.
Yeah, they were like,
the start.
just do it. We don't want you to stop doing these. So we jumped on it. Managed to get a really good card together. Obviously there were some people who couldn't make it because of the rescheduled date, but then we managed to fill some of the gaps with some people that we really pleased to have added.
One thing I was going to ask, what's it like, because I'm guessing you contact the wrestlers directly if you want to book them.
Yep.
I'm kind of putting myself in your shoes. So if I was you, well, obviously I'm going to openly admit I'm a massive wrestling geek. I think Luke,
pretty.
You can attest to that, and I'm happy with that. So I imagine if I was booking a show and I was contacting people, the caliber that you've booked, at least, I would be, I don't know, like I'd probably regress to being like a little childhood, like my childhood, like kid meeting his hero sort of thing. What's it like talking to the people that you've obviously seen in at Rev Pro and Progress and Southside and saying, hey man, we're booking a show. Well, are you free this date? Blah blah blah.
Most of the contact has been via email to start with, at least email and Facebook, and I just try and be as professional as possible. Just lay out.
I'd completely lose my shit. I'd be like, oh man, I love you. Come to my show.
Yeah. Well, then you've got no negotiating power, have you?
True. Just mark out. Man.
Yeah. So we just, we try and explain, especially with the first show, because nobody knows who you are. You got no reputation. Nobody's clamoring to work for you.
Did you find that was like? Do you think that made life trickier for you in that case?
No, I don't know. I don't know about that. I think, so long as we presented ourselves as professional, and if you do that and you try and make it clear that people are going to get paid, then I don't think you've got too much trouble. If you don't act like an idiot, then people won't treat you like too much of an idiot. And all credit to everybody that we've worked with. Everybody's been really helpful and really positive and professional as well. So
obviously moving forward, you've got, I think at the time of recording, your next show is October 28th.
That's right, Friday, October 28th.
I don't know who you've got booked. I haven't checked on my phone yet, but is there anybody you haven't yet booked for a show that you're like, who's on your wish list of who you'd love to get on good 5 or 6 or 7?
I mean, do you want a ridiculous fantasy wish list?
Go for it. Yeah. Well, let's have a few, like the realistic ones and the. So let's start with on the UK scene, the British Indies. Who is kind of on there at the moment that you haven't had but you would absolutely love to get on? Who are the best wrestlers in the country right now? There is a lot. In fairness,
always been a massive fan of Marty Skrull. Like Jimmy Havoc.
See, Jimmy Havoc literally scares me. Like he's probably the only wrestler I'm scared of.
And that's perfect, isn't it? That's what
I think he's got his character down to a T.
He's been amazing over the last few years, and I can't wait to see him back. Do you know what Travis Banks, New Zealand wrestler, saw him against Zack Sabre Jr. at Fight Club Pro last month, and it was the best match I've seen this year.
Wow.
It was amazing. I think they've just got their video on demand up for that show. I think it's £4. I can't recommend it enough. Cool. That show, top to bottom, was probably the best show I've been to this year. Other than that, I'd love to have a couple of the guys that we had, Styx and Joseph Connors on our first show.
Massive fan of Styx.
I'd love to get those guys back at some point. Again, they were the main sort of casualties of our second show rescheduling. Trying to think. Because I don't want to keep naming Progress guys. Because we're based so close to London, it is really.
There's a big pool of talent right there.
Yeah, it is really tempting.
In Birmingham area, in the West Midlands as well.
Yeah.
Would you ever go down the line of international people? Like, I know you said like you're kind of different from Southside because they heavily rely on the imports. Is that something you guys would ever want to do? Have you talked about it?
We've had some like brief conversations with international guys, but we're very budget conscious at the moment.
Yes, of course. Yeah.
Being so early on and wanting to build, for lack of a better term, build a brand.
Oh no, of course, yeah, no, that's what it is. Yeah,
and, make the shows attractive to people for what we're doing right now, rather than a one-off. Oh, this guy's appearing. Let's go and check that out.
Yeah.
Having said that, you're in my flat right now, and there is a small shrine to Jushin Thunder Liger over there.
I did see that. That was one of the first things I saw as I came in.
And if he wanted to give me a call, I would learn some Japanese, and we could see what we could work out. He could stay. I got some room on the sofa. He can come and kip here.
He'd be a fool not to, really.
Yeah, he would. I mean, he might find it weird looking at a picture of himself while he tries to sleep. But I don't know what his house is like. Yeah.
Just you.
But I mean, there are some. It's hard to say, isn't it?
You'd be like a kid in a candy shop, wouldn't you? Like, who wouldn't you want to bring over? Really?
Yeah,
like?
I mean, I'd want to be sort of realistic. I'd want to stick within certain parameters and what makes sense for us.
Yeah, of course.
And not like. I'm conscious of bringing in anyone who doesn't quite fit with what we're doing.
Yeah.
I mean, there are loads of guys in the UK right now who I would be reluctant to bring in because they probably don't quite fit with what we're going for.
So what would you describe that fit as?
Well,
is that kind of like the adult males sort of market? Or?
Yeah, I mean, yes and no. We because of the nature of the venue that we're running in, I think you're going to get as many hardcore wrestling fans as very casual.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure at that
fans.
Very first show there was at least one or at least two very casual fans that clearly had never seen wrestling before.
No, all three shows I know for a fact that we've had a bunch of people there that have never been to shows.
But I think they loved it either way. I can tell. Yeah.
Because the kind of people that we book are entertaining, and can entertain you in a way that isn't necessarily a half a dozen suplexes and some strong style stuff. Like we've got a lot. We have some comedy on our shows.
I'm going to get to that in a minute. Actually,
and we have some great wrestling on our shows. I wouldn't want for us to go down the route of like, the sort of worked MMA style that some guys are doing. I don't think that would work for us.
Yeah, no, I can
it's
see
very
that.
Sort of character driven,
which is kind of my favourite style. I think we spoke about this on the podcast, is what we love about wrestling. I think that's kind of sounds like you're describing my perfect kind of wrestlers, I guess.
Well, you need to come along to the shows.
Well, no, I will. Well, I can't remember I know the first one I was obviously at.
Yeah.
2 I was going to be at, and then 3 I think I was on holiday. But 4 is already in my diary. I will be there. Yeah. Bar a wedding or a funeral. Yeah. But and I'm sure I'll drag Luke along as well. Well, we're not. Yeah.
Well, touch
hopefully
wood.
Not.
Let's hope there's no weddings coming up.
Bar a natural disaster, I will be there. You mentioned comedy. One guy that stood out to me by a country mile in the first show. I mean, I heard of a lot of people on the first show. There was only a handful I hadn't heard of or even seen before. Jack Sexsmith.
Oh yes, Jack
is a guy I had never heard of. I will hold my hand up to that. I'd never seen, and I went away and I immediately know I both never want to see him again and also want to see every match he's ever been in the set at the same time. It's a weird emotional feeling. Is he a Progress guy?
Yeah. He's from the Progress School.
Because I'm very intrigued. I'm very intrigued about this guy because I don't think I've laughed so much in a match without feeling like I was at like a Punch and Judy show or like some kind of see something. He was hilarious without being, while still being a wrestler, if that makes sense.
Yeah, he definitely has got that balance down really well. The sexually frivolous and morally ambiguous Jack Sexsmith.
I think I definitely struggled. I was trying to explain it to Luke in the way and I just couldn't. I was like, he's kind of this way but also that way and also down the middle and
he's like a friendly sex pest to all.
He's essentially the British Quagmire by the sound of it.
That's not a bad. That's not a bad call.
Okay, but probably with less sinister.
Okay.
I think he's very sort of open about what he is looking for, and his approach towards both his opponents and the audience. He's a very special performer, and like we're really sort of lucky to have him on the shows. In fact, I mean, funny you bring him up. He is part of the first match that we have announced for the next show.
It's him and a mystery partner, I think.
Yeah, it's him and a partner yet to be announced against the Dazzler team of Daryl Allen, who you would have seen him face on the first show, and his protege Earl Black Jr., who Jack was beaten by on the second show.
So that's kind of like almost like a storyline you've got flowing through there. That's good to see. That's good to see.
The Dazzler team have they've taken it upon themselves to try and make Jack's life a bit of a misery.
Is that possible? It doesn't seem like a guy that could be miserable.
Put it this way, he's been kicked in the dick a few times.
Fair point.
Yeah, and anyone with a dick will tell you that's not not a nice feeling. So he's bringing a partner along. So that'll be fun to find out who that'll be.
Definitely.
And you won't be getting any word from me just yet.
I'm all up for the surprises as well. So
excellent.
I think that's the kind of the tricky thing I find is the more I get interested, obviously the more I learn.
Yep.
But then at the same time, I almost don't want to learn too much. Like I don't want it to be spoiled. Like if I read a rumor that this guy's going to beat this guy at WrestleMania, I don't want to hear that. I don't want to read it. I want to go in and I want them to tell me the story rather than me.
Oh, definitely.
Know the ending. So,
I think it's putting the shows together. It can get quite sort of tricky because I've got some close friends that I'd spoken to a lot about putting the shows together, and I want to say, you'll never guess who we've got for the next show, and it's hard to judge whether or not you want to tell them now.
That's it. How much you give away,
or they want to wait to hear it with everybody else. So that's something I need to get a bit better at. Actually,
talking about putting the shows together, how do you go about like booking a card and stuff? Is that a tricky thing for you to do, to kind of plan what match goes where? Do you, how much of a kind of a thought process do you have putting it all together?
I'll be honest, it's a bit of a learning curve at the minute, and it's something that we're still getting to grips with. Where to put things on the show, trying to get the pace up. I think we got a really good balance with the last show. I'm really pleased with that. I think when we get that up online,
do you have a tactic of doing things like you have to open with this or have this in this, like this type of match at this type of spot? Or
I think it's important to have something at the beginning of the show that people are going to get invested in and get interested in. And you don't, with any sort of entertainment, you don't want the crowd not interested from the very beginning. But I don't think there's I think people would like to tell you there's a lot of secrets and tricks of the trade. I think a lot of it's common sense and just trying to get the pacing right, and I think we'll get a feel for that and improve as we go along.
And how much of a kind of influence do you put in on the actual match themselves? Do you go to A and B and say, right, I want you guys to have this type of match, or I want to see this spot, or I want this, or do you just say you're facing this guy, you're going over, put a match together, or like?
I think
how deep into it do you go with them?
For the most part, I would never want to get under anyone's feet and sort of tell them how to do their job. I think at most it's this is what we want out of it.
Like the style of match, or
this is this is the result that we want. This is, but not necessarily just like the outcome of the match, but what it's supposed to mean. Sort of going forward. Because it's all well and good saying, A and B are going in there to wrestle, B's going to win. Go off and do it.
That's it.
But like, if you don't know what A's supposed to look like coming out of that match, then there's not, you've not really got a story out of it.
Cool. So I was saying we're kind of winding down for time now, but let's talk a little bit more about the show on the 28th. So Crawford Arms.
Yep.
Tickets are
£12.
Are they available now?
They are available now from goodwrestling.com.
There we go. And I'm guessing, Facebook, is it facebook.com/goodwrestling?
Good Wrestling UK on Facebook and on the Twitter.
Twitter and Instagram. What else do we have, Luke?
Oh, we're going through ours now.
I'm just thinking like boxes to tick. So we have a website, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, YouTube.
YouTube. I don't know. Do you have like an address for you? I don't know. You.
I think
whatever your name is.
We figured ours out, but I don't know how. Yeah.
Okay, I don't know. Just search YouTube for Good Wrestling UK. You'll find it. Instagram. I think we've got one. Don't use it. I don't even. I'm not 100% sure how you're supposed to get popular on Instagram. Just hashtags. I can't get along with that.
It's just like ice cream and cleavage, isn't it? Like that's
Mind the two.
Well.
Okay, well, I'll have a word with Jack Sexsmith at the next show.
I'm sure he can come up with something.
See what we can come up with.
And what can we expect from the show? So obviously we've got Sexsmith versus the Dazzler team.
Yep. And
without giving too much away, obviously, what can we expect?
Yes, his opponent, his partner, will be announced sometime before the show. We've also announced that Pastor William Eva, Gene Money and Chris Brooks will all be appearing. They were all on our last show.
Gene Money, a guy that we're hoping to have on in the next few weeks, hopefully.
Yeah, you should have Gene on. He'll be an entertaining individual. He will use the phrase sexual gammon. I think on the last show he referred to himself as succulent mass.
Wow.
Which conjures up images which were laid out before you in the wrestling ring on that night.
Wow.
So those three guys have been announced in addition to the tag match. We're gonna have a couple of debuts on the show.
Cool.
We're gonna top to bottom, I think we'll be putting on as good a card as anybody else.
I'm confident. I think you will. Yeah.
Sounds good to me.
Yeah.
Well, Chris, thank you very much for joining us. It's been a pleasure to hear about how Good Wrestling has kind of grown and developed. To be honest, I can't wait to go to number 4.
Yep.
And have you got a date for number 5 yet?
We've got all our dates penciled in for next year.
Cool.
So I believe the first show will be first Friday of February next year. So
we've got October this year, then February. So there's a bit of a gap.
Yeah. So
time
we did
to miss
4
you guys
shows this year.
One more.
And we're okay. I'm going to give you guys a bit of an exclusive.
Ooh, exclusive.
We'll be doing 6 shows next year. So
awesome.
Yeah, that's 2 more than 4. A bit of a smaller gap between them. So yeah, first show in February next year.
Well, I wish you all the best.
Thank you.
Who knows? Maybe in a year or 2 we'll get you on when you're headlining Wembley or something like that.
Let's fill the Crawford first.
Yeah. I'm sure you'll get that. I'm sure you'll get that. Well, thanks for joining us, man.
Thank you.
Figure 4 Radio.